let's get into 5 teams that could trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. And we'll start things off with just the broad kind of analysis, if you will, on Karl-Anthony Towns, because the headline is that he and the T-Wolves are not in a very good place.
They're not in a good place internally, and this isn't very surprising to me because when the T-Wolves hired Tom Thibodeau, I went back and I looked for players that were similar to Karl-Anthony Towns and how their careers kind of progressed. And the problem was Thibodeau had never used a player like Karl-Anthony Towns before. Someone who can play the 5, who can rebound and also score, who's so young and is such incredible prowess under the basket. I mean, he never had a big man like him, and I was worried that he would try to use him too much like a Taj Gibson or like a Noah, and he did, and that's what happened this year. His defense took a huge step back because Thibodeau just didn't use him correctly with Jimmy Butler on the court. His offense was still great, but I think as an overall career point, I think Karl-Anthony Towns' career regressed a little bit this year, and it's not surprising. I think Towns feels the pressure coming from Thibodeau. I don't think he likes his coaching style. I don't think he likes the amount of minutes that he has to play every single night. I just think it's a bad relationship, and it's going to come down to Karl-Anthony Towns or Tom Thibodeau.
He deserves better.
He does deserve better. Okay. Absolutely. I'm not a fan of Thibodeau as a coach in 2018.
All right, let's take a look at some trade options here. We will start with the Phoenix Suns. What do you think about the possibilities here?
This, to me, is the most likely possibility, mostly because we've heard a rumor, and we'll get to this in our NBA draft rumor segment later, that the Suns are interested in trading the number 1 overall pick. So this all comes down to, how do you value Karl-Anthony Towns? Well, I value him like this: a former first-round player, another first-round pick, and then another quality bench player. That's what it's going to take to get Karl-Anthony Towns. It's going to take a couple of names and a first-round pick. So for the Suns, I think this is actually a great trade for the Phoenix Suns. You trade Josh Jackson, who, good season last year, still can't shoot, good defender, didn't really do anything until the last 30 games of the season. Bender is terrible. I mentioned this with the Celtics. He's just a bust. He's not any good. It was a bad draft pick. They get to get rid of him. Maybe Thibodeau can do something with him, but again, I highly doubt it. And then the number 1 overall pick for Karl-Anthony Towns. It's a fair trade. You get a 22-year-old who is currently averaging 21 and 12, and you finally give Devin Booker the big he needs down low to open up some more lanes for him. This starting 5 for the Suns next year with Karl-Anthony Towns is fantastic. Elfrid Payton, Devin Booker, TJ Warren, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Tyson Chandler. You have Tyson Chandler as a veteran presence who can help Karl-Anthony Towns with his defense, and also you have TJ Warren, who's a good scoring 3. I like Devin Booker as well. I think he's on his way to being one of the stars in the NBA. Elfrid Payton plus Karl-Anthony Towns is a great pick and roll combo. This is a basketball team that can win you games and also win games on the road.
Well, you also said it's a fantastic lineup. Is that relative to the fact that the Suns were really, really bad last year?
It is relative, but also I think if you just kind of take this, they improve big time on offense because Towns would be the best big that they've had since Amari Stoudemire. It improves their defense because it eases up the post pressure on an old Tyson Chandler. And they're not going to bring back Alex Len because, again, just another bust of a draft pick. But Towns and Chandler be a great matchup down low. TJ Warren is a good shooter at the 3. He's kind of a poor man's Robert Covington, and then Booker and Payton are 2 really good options as well. Obviously, it's a great backcourt.
All right, so that's the deal with the Suns. We talked about the Celtics a little earlier in the rumor section here. You think this is a possibility that Boston could make a move?
I think this is a real possibility, mostly because I think one of the Celtics players overall, especially one of the young guys, is going to end up getting moved. I like what the Celtics are doing right now in terms of their overall offseason, but for now, it's just going to be a lot of different phases for them. Do they trade a guy? Do they try to trade up in the draft? Do they just keep the team as it is and move on? I have been trading for Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't love this trade for either side, really. I think that Jason Tatum obviously is going to be a good player for obviously any team that he goes to. He's a great player. I think that Sacramento pick in the first round, the Celtics, really, they value it highly. But Jason Tatum plus a first-round pick for Karl-Anthony Towns plus a good bench player, it's an even trade for both sides. It makes sense in terms of contracts, but I think the Celtics say no to this trade. I think they value Jason Tatum too highly. I think they like Towns. Maybe a Jaylen Brown instead of Jason Tatum would be a good fit. But overall, I just think it'd be tough to swing this without Jason Tatum for the T-Wolves. I don't think they say yes without him, and I don't think the Celtics are going to trade him.
All right, so that's a potential trade there between the T-Wolves and the Boston Celtics. Meanwhile, you take a look at this potential starting five for Boston. Anything that sticks out here, Harris? Oh, yeah, it's Karl-Anthony Towns, a power forward.
What sticks out is the fact that this team is going to win the East and probably own the East for at least the next half decade. That is an unbelievable starting five. Karl-Anthony Towns gets to learn from just who I think a great comp for him was coming out of college was Al Horford. I think that his defense can really take a big step forward. He has that same kind of – he has more of an offensive prowess than Horford does, but that would just be a great mentee to mentor combo with Towns and Horford. And then the rest of that lineup is just ridiculous. Plus Brad Stevens. I think this team wins the finals next year.
All right, so that's a look at the Celtics. How about the Milwaukee Bucks?
Don't yell at me.
KAT go and pair with Giannis?
I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. The amount of length that I can have on this team is furious. And you may look at this trade that I'm going to bring up here and say that it's a little bit light in terms of what the Bucks would be sending to the T-Wolves. But I don't think it is at all, because I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves and Tom Thibodeau are going to look at a guy like Chris Middleton and their mouths are instantly going to start to water. He is the exact kind of length and scoring that they need on their top five. They can go small and kind of, work with Jeff Teague plus Jimmy Butler plus Wiggins and then Middleton and then Taj Gibson to go small, which the modern NBA requires you to do. Brogdon would be a great bench player for the T-Wolves plus that first round pick. And then you look at the Bucks starting five. Look at all the length. There's so much length in defense.
See, that's the lineup I want, Harris.
Giannis, Towns, Henson, Tony Snell.
Win the glass.
So much length. I don't know if this team wins any games, but this is Mike Budenholzer's wet dream.
I don't care because they get rebounds. That's all I care about.
They would kill with this lineup. Giannis plus Towns with Mike Budenholzer. So much rebounding, so many post moves. I couldn't resist. I simply couldn't. Budenholzer would go crazy over this.
All right, so there is the dream scenario for the Bucks. How about the LA Lakers? Now, this is interesting because, number one, they have 2 max slots to work with here.
Yep.
But number 2, they could also get creative via a trade here.
I need Lakers fans to understand this before we show them the trade. If you want to trade anything right now and you do not want to trade Lonzo Ball, the only player that any team is going to accept is Kyle Kuzma. They are going to ask for Kyle Kuzma. If the Lakers say no, the other team is going to hang up the phone. Every single trade offer that I'm going to have with the Lakers begins and ends with Kyle Kuzma and Brandon Ingram. So with the Minnesota Timberwolves, they get Kuzma, Josh Hart, and their 2019 first-round pick, and the Lakers get Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, again, you might be yelling, "Oh, Harris, what? This is so bad for the Lakers." No, it's not. Their starting five next year actually be fantastic. Lonzo Ball, Paul George, Brandon Ingram. Maybe you're able to bring back Julius Randle. And oh yeah, now you have Karl-Anthony Towns. That's a great starting five in the modern-day NBA. Julius Randle and Karl-Anthony Towns would actually be a really fun 4-5 combo down low. Ingram would be able to continue his scoring progression. Towns would be able to put up at least 20 a night. So would Ingram. Paul George would be dominating with Ingram next to him. Length, defense, rebounding,
I feel like they could do a lot of things on offense.
Yeah, and guess what? Maybe next year in 2019 you add Kawhi Leonard.
Ooh.
And now all of a sudden you have Lonzo Ball, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Julius Randle, and Karl-Anthony Towns.
You better be winning the
West.
You
still mad at me? Are you still mad at me, Lakers fans? I just gave you an actual lineup that could go up against the Warriors. Sorry, you're welcome.
All right, so that's a look at the Lakers. How about the 76ers here? They have 1 max slot to play with as well. What do you think?
Again, I couldn't resist. I don't really think that this would work on a basketball court. I think that Embiid plus Simmons plus Cat is a little bit too much around the glass.
I'm not a fan.
But he loves Philadelphia. He's a huge Philadelphia sports fan. Obviously, he's a big Eagles fan. I'm sure he's a Sixers fan as well. Him and Ben Simmons play video games together all the time. They're buddies off the court. And I think that this trade also is actually pretty fair.
I love how video games is part of the equation.
Hey, the Los Angeles Lakers young guys have all bonded over Fortnite. So until I see anything differently, I'm going to keep bringing it up. But look, the T-Wolves get Dario Saric and Markelle Fultz. They get a really good 4, and they get a versatile point guard who can come off the bench and also play the 2, score a ton of points for them, and they get that 2018 first. And the 76ers get Towns, and I think it actually puts him at a little more of his realistic position. I don't think Karl-Anthony Towns is a center in the modern day NBA. I think you have to put him at the 4 and you have to put him a little bit away from the basket. Similar to what the Celtics used to do with Kevin Garnett back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, where he was the center, but he wasn't a prototypical center where he's always on the glass and always rebounding. Sure. Offensively, he's a little bit farther away from the glass, playing a little bit more on the elbows and a little bit more kind of away from the basket. And on defense, he's just making sure you don't get past him. This would also give Karl-Anthony Towns the ability to be a little bit more lax on defense because Embiid is one of the best rim protectors in basketball. That is an amazing starting five. That is a starting five that'll keep you top 3 in the East, like I said, with the Celtics for the next half decade.
All right, best trade destination for Karl-Anthony Towns. We've got the Suns, Celtics, Lakers, and 76ers as your options. Give us a heart, like, wow face, and a laughing face, respectively, with your votes. Harris, where are you going with this?
I'm still going with the Suns. I still think that his relationship with Devin Booker and the amount of capital that they have is going to make it a really easy destination. I don't think the Celtics and the 76ers are going to make a move like that. Maybe the Lakers. That would be super fun, but they clearly have their eyes on Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and LeBron. And I wonder if they're going to make a trade